A very good morning all. I'm Aditi Lama with the Sunday edition of South Asian News, Vision of Asia. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Welcome to the show where we bring to you top picks of the week. Looking at this week, we saw several coronavirus updates and measures detailing much on the possibility of another surge of coronavirus with COVID-19 variants spreading all across the nation. More than 3 million vaccine doses are being administered each day. This week also saw a pause in the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine due to its connection to rare blood clots which were seen in women ages 18 to 48. There is currently a review being done by the CDC and the vaccine will stay paused for at least 10 days, which is affecting the current rollout of the vaccination program. Meanwhile, lots happened in politics with President Biden announcing that he will pull out U.S. troops out of Afghanistan on September 11th. This happened as the trial of Derek Chauvin and the police shooting of Daunte Wright, both in Minneapolis, sparked anger and outrage over endless killings of innocent black lives. The state of Minnesota and around the country, we are seeing protests against police brutality and racism. So we have today many highlights from all that occurred this week. So let's begin the Sunday morning episode of Vision of Asia and take a look at the headlines. India's coronavirus cases continue to surge at record numbers, featuring Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, New Jersey. Pause on Johnson & Johnson single-dose COVID-19 vaccine, Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Kamal, Kalsi, New Jersey. Veteran journalist Rohit Vyas on police shootings of Black Americans, New Jersey. Binder and Indian Consulate celebrate Immortal, legacy of Lata Mangeshkar, New York. Pause on Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine for 10 days, Dr. Purvi Parikh, New York City. Indian Consulate commemorates Dr. Bhim Ambedkar's 130th birth anniversary, New York City. Time for a short break. Stay with us on Vision of Asia South Asian News segment. We'll be right back. And welcome back. I am Aditi Lama and this is Vision of Asia top picks of the week of South Asian News. Let's take a look at coronavirus updates and measures. Health officials are currently reviewing the rare case of blood clots in people who have received the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. Experts are saying that this pause in the rollout of Johnson & Johnson vaccine is an important decision for vaccine confidence and improving long-term trust. Johnson & Johnson says that the vaccine benefits outweigh any blood clot risk. Meanwhile, officials are pleading Americans to stay vigilant. On this and much more, we spoke with Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Kamal Kalsi. Here is the conversation. What is this connection that we keep on seeing between vaccines and blood clots? And how are you observing this pause on Johnson & Johnson?
Yeah, you bring up a great point, Aditi. This is how medicine and science works. As you get new information, you reevaluate. And so the CDC did the responsible thing, which is, if you see some complications, I think there were 6 cases, as you mentioned, of blood clots. And they're basically just taking time to figure out, is this a true connection between the J&J vaccine and blood clots, or is this just a unfortunate coincidence? So I think they're looking at all the data, and we should get a result. We should get some sort of results one way or another, and more information from them within hopefully another week or two. And if it ends up being that J&J causes a higher risk of blood clots, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily off the table. That means that you have to either try to find a way to mitigate that risk, either through aspirin or blood thinners, or a doctor talking to a patient saying, "Hey, look, there is some risk of potential blood clots with this." Like any medicine, there may be circumstances where the risks sometimes outweigh the benefits, and vice versa as well. It may be that some patients would benefit more from the J&J vaccine, and the risk of blood clots, if they're very minuscule, the benefits may potentially outweigh the risks.
These blood clots, what can they do to the body? What's the most dangerous thing that can happen with it?
The most dangerous thing is that you could die. It just depends on where the blood clots might be. If the blood clot's in the leg, that's easily remedied by blood thinners. If the blood clot travels to the lungs and becomes what's called a pulmonary embolism, that can cause severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. It can cause lung damage. It can cause all sorts of respiratory issues. So I think there is a wide range of possibilities in terms of things that this could cause, in terms of what a blood clot could cause. Certainly heart attack and stroke are also on that list. But hopefully we find out that isn't necessarily a causal effect. But we have to find out. I found also very interesting and disturbing that that India may actually take the number 2 spot in number of infections pretty soon, overtaking Brazil.
Right. When we're looking at these blood clots and the issues we're having, AstraZeneca has had similar issues of blood clots, and they are right now on pause as well in many European nations. We're waiting for AstraZeneca's approval in the US. Is this similar? Is it the same kind of blood clots that we're seeing in this vaccine? And do you think it'll get approved in the US?
So I don't know exactly if they're the same types of blood clots. I don't have the access to that type of data. But I know that AstraZeneca also was paused due to blood clots and other complications. Do I think AstraZeneca will get approved in the US? I think pending further investigation, if they don't see any other complications, then I think it could get potentially fast-tracked for approval. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. There's a lot more to investigate. But people need vaccine. We here in the U.S. have been vaccinating people, between 1 and 2 million people a day, which is tremendous. I think the Biden administration has been doing an excellent job so far in getting the vaccine out. But we need something like close to 70% of the population to be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunization or herd immunity. And with all these variants popping up, it becomes a huge challenge. And we, quite frankly, don't know exactly whether these how well the vaccines are going to fare against all of the variants out there.
Right. And just going back to Johnson & Johnson here for a second, many people are right now concerned about what can happen to them if they have taken the Johnson & Johnson single dose COVID-19 shot. How are you looking at that? What are the risks of them developing these blood clots after they have been vaccinated? Yeah,
that's a great question. So I would tell those patients to, if you've had J&J, go to your primary care doctor, go to your general practitioner and have a conversation with them. Essentially, if you have a high risk of clots, your doctor may decide to put you on aspirin or a blood thinner for a short period. But if you're young and healthy, your doctor may just choose to monitor you. But again, it's a conversation that they should have with their primary doctor.
Right. And, just a little bit ago, you've mentioned the variants of coronavirus, which are spreading all across the nation. New York and New Jersey, where you are, and New York, where we are, is a part of those 5 to 6 states that are seeing lots of variants going around. Experts are getting worried about a surge that is coming up. What is the relation between those two things? And how worried are you as a medical professional about this upcoming surge?
We're very worried. I mean, we're actually in the surge already. And in New Jersey, for example, we have seen a week over week increase for the last several weeks now. There's a lot of theories behind what's driving it. It could be that there's some people that are tired of staying in all the time. So there is, it could just be people, not following protocols, not masking, and then going out into large public spaces with lots and lots of people, or having large gatherings. The other thought process is that it could be related to the new variant. So the UK variant is actually now the most predominant variant in New Jersey. And I believe it's now becoming the most common variant in the United States overall. But this UK variant, it is more infectious, and it is certainly causing more complications. It's making people sicker than the original coronavirus variant that we had here. So, I think we have to. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot that we still have to research and figure out. With spring break upon us, a lot of folks are on spring break this week. That in itself is concerning, because all these spring breakers are going to go out, potentially get infected, and bring it home all over the country. So we're very worried, and we may see this surge for the next couple months before we get a handle on it again.
More on the coronavirus updates and measures. India, home to many of our viewers, is seeing a record high number of COVID-19 cases and hospitalization. The country recorded more than 200,000 cases on Thursday, the country's highest single increase ever, and hospitalizations in major population centers have now begun reporting a shortage of beds and oxygen supplies, as the country's second wave of infections are showing no signs of slowing down. India's richest state, Maharashtra, is in a partial lockdown, and India's capital, New Delhi, has imposed weekend curfews as the situation there becomes more intense. More on Delhi's condition and the impact of India's COVID-19 cases surging, we have now ITV Gold's Ashok Vyas speaking with Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh. Here is the conversation.
Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and I'm delighted to be joined by Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh this week. Dr. Namaste, welcome.
Namaskar.
Dr. While we look forward to a COVID-free world, but what we are hearing from India is quite a cause of concern. And in single day, over 17,000 people with COVID in Delhi itself. So talk to me about the general impression that you are gathering from India regarding COVID situation.
Well, I think in India, the situation of the COVID, it's kind of very bleak, very worrisome, and very concernsome, because in India, the way the cases of the COVID are going up, the infrastructure of the medical healthcare structure is collapsing. There is no enough bed available. Patient has to go from 3 to 4 hours around town to get admitted. A lot of patients are admitted on they are on the floor of the or lobby of the hospital, lying on the bed sheet and with the oxygen cylinder next to them. So this is kind of looking like a completely third world country with everything looking like it's collapsing, all the healthcare system. So I think government has to we developed their aggressive approach to the management of this or handling of this COVID situation right now. Somehow we had to break the link of new infection, and only way to do is to do almost like a lockdown for at least next couple of weeks in order to break the link. And simultaneously we should start giving more vaccination, at least first dose, one dose to the as many people as one can, without restricting them by categories. Otherwise, infection will not come in under control, and will have a kind of very bad situation in our hand in near future.
I think what you are saying is absolutely true, and it is not just Delhi, but other states, including Maharashtra and Rajasthan, and other states are also showing a sign of second wave hitting India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a few days ago, addressed the chief ministers of various states, and yesterday he addressed governors of states. And how do you see the kind of collaborative efforts between states and central government at this point under Prime Minister Modi?
Well, right now it looks like something is missing here. There's no good communication between state and the center. I mean, probably center also means well, and state also means well, but there is no coordination, and everyone is blaming each other, and that should not be like that. Number two, the most critical thing in this kind of surge is they have to stop big gathering in the public. And unfortunately, still campaign is going on. Still people are campaigning without wearing masks, and there is thousands of people are gathering. I think after next 2 weeks there will be big surge in the Bengal or in the Tamil Nadu or in Kerala. So I think the campaign has to be modified, has to be done different way, and till we control the pandemic.
I think you're absolutely true. And someone raised the question which you had raised in the previous episode of this week with Home Minister Amit Shah. And he said that this decision of holding election is done by Election Commission, and there is no constitutional provision that if the time period for the state government is over, then who will take over, etc. But
no. They can hold the election according to the constitution, because time is there. I mean, deadline is there to hold the election. But the way you campaign has to be modified. In COVID, we all modified our life, our day-to-day life. Why not campaign? And campaign should be modified, and should be done through digital and electronic means, through TV, newspaper, or gathering of the small group, but not thousands of people, not wearing the mask. Even the Kumbh Mela is also very ill-advised idea, because even the Kumbh Mela has to be done, but you can restrict the people in the Kumbh Mela and do a different way. Do all the rituals, all the pujas, everything, but not let every thousands and lakhs of people get together, do the bath in the Ganga like this. By not doing 1 year, not going to change our religious faith,
So that is a point which you have made is reasonably well. The question about people gathering to protest is also an important one, which we have seen recently in the farmers' protest, and I think part of it still continues, though Punjab government gave some hint that the payment that is to be made to farmers should be through them and something, but not getting into the farmers' agitation side. Coming back to the reference of Tikka Utsa, that is a mass-scale vaccination program announced by Government of India, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi between 11th to 14th April said that this will be observed as Tikka Utsa, to which many people have criticized, including DMK leader Stalin, saying that referring to such grim situation as Utsav is inappropriate. What is your take on this?
Well, I think Prime Minister means well, and what he's saying is by whether you use word Utsav or not, I think that's a wrong criticism by opposition party. But I think what he said that he has to galvanize people to do vaccination or get vaccination, and in order to do that, he's kind of putting this kind of Tikka Utsa or something where people can galvanize or rally behind that. So I think what Prime Minister is doing is correcting. Whole idea is to get the vaccination and government should make sure that there is enough supply of the vaccination, because a lot of states are complaining that they do not have enough supply of the vaccination. So I think government has to even import some vaccination, and I think they are doing from the Russia, and they also should do some from the Pfizer and Moderna, and get some more vaccination because our population is so huge. We need much more dosage than what we have.
There is another side which relates to fair share of justice with respect to collective presence of a community. And in India, when you also remember that 1947 division took place on the basis of religion, and now when the questions about after Ayodhya, Supreme Court have responded to one petition and accepted that Archaeological Survey of India should investigate about the possible temple structure under Gyan Vapi Mosque in Varanasi near Kashi Vishwanath Mandir. Your take on this new development?
Well, I think Supreme Court has spoken, decided, so temple has to be built, and usually the emotional and the faith of the Hindu population is that it should be built where the Ram was born, right? God Ram was birthplace, and therefore I think whatever Supreme Court has decided should continue, and any other new twist to this kind of this issue should not be welcome.
Yeah, no, I probably couldn't communicate properly. It is after Ayodhya, the new development that is happening in Varanasi, where
Oh, I see.
yeah, near Kashi Vishwanath there is Gyanavapi Mosque, where the ASI should dig and find out whether there are some remnants of temple. That is the latest situation.
Well, I mean, again, this is kind of, on one hand, we're talking about harmony, current harmony, and one hand we go back to 3, 4, 5,000 years old situation, or even 1,000 years old situation, that we have to decide then really whether we should go backward or we should go forward. And because you will find that every temple, next to temple, there is a masjid there in India, unfortunately, because that's how Mughal did it. I mean, look at the Mathura. I mean, Mathura's temple, the wall is common between temple and masjid. So our next question is whether you should destroy that masjid in Mathura too. So I think sometime, I mean, what people are saying is right, but we have to balance it out what we want in the future, whether we want to spend our energy for this or we want to spend our energy for the economic development and the future of the young generation.
So again, I would say voice of reason, and then voice of justice and voice of emotion. Sometimes we need to find a balance between all the three. But as we conclude today's session, I appreciate your insightful contribution and your parting words for our viewers.
Well, dear friends, again, since the situation in India as well as here, it's still grim and still concerns some. So please wear the mask in the public. Do not do a big gathering in the public. and get vaccinated. All the vaccines are safe, obviously, but we know that there is a concern about J&J vaccine recently, but that concern is not proven yet. It's in the post, so I'm sure that CDC and FDA will figure it out scientifically whether those bad incidences happened was completely related to vaccine or something else. And after that, we'll have probably J&J vaccine back in the realm of the total vaccinations. So please get vaccinated whenever you get a chance. Don't hesitate. Don't spread the rumors that vaccines are not safe. And that's the only way one can control this pandemic. Otherwise, pandemic will go on for a long, long time. So please do that. And thank you for listening this week. We'll see you next week. Till then, God bless America. God bless India. God bless Indian American community. And goodbye. Thank you.
It's time for a short break on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We'll be back shortly. And welcome back. I am Diti Lama, and this is Vision of Asia, South Asian News segment, Topics of the Week. In politics and more, we now have a conversation on the recent police shooting of Daunte Wright, who was fatally shot in Minneapolis. The former police officer, Kim Porter, who shot him, has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. Hundreds are gathering every night to protest against police brutality and killings of Black Americans, and are also reflecting upon George Floyd's killing last year in the same city. More on this, we spoke with ITV Go senior political commentator, Mr. Rohit Vyas. Here is Mr. Vyas. My first question to you has to do with one of the biggest news that's concerning the nation all across, the shooting of Daunte Wright in Minnesota. Another shooting killing an unarmed Black person. Officer Kim Porter has been charged with second-degree manslaughter here, and that all happened at a traffic stop. My question to you is, how are you looking at this, and was this another case of racism, according to you?
And interestingly, it happened just about 10 miles away from where the trial of Derek Chauvin is going on right now. So it was what a coincidence, what a terrible coincidence and a strange coincidence. Once again, in my mind, this speaks to the extreme need and the urgent need for retraining of our police forces throughout the country. Police need to be retrained. They need to be retrained in methods of dealing with communities of color. They need to be retrained in sensitivity to people. But at the same time, police do face an extremely uphill battle each time they're out there, risking their own lives trying to confront someone. All of this involves instantaneous decisions, split-second decisions, and therefore retraining is going to be absolutely necessary in my mind. This latest shooting illustrates precisely that. She said she thought she had pulled out the taser, the officer concerned, that she had pulled out a taser and instead fired a weapon, a loaded weapon at this particular individual. How that happened, we don't know. I don't understand it. I don't think any person in their right mind understands it, because there's got to be a difference between a taser and a gun in the feel of it, in the weight of it, and things like that. So how did that happen is going to have to be investigated. So here was a question of, if the police explanation is accurate, this was an error of gigantic proportions. And how could a police officer not know the difference between a taser, and an actual weapon, a loaded weapon? Whether it's racism is still early to determine. This appeared to be a traffic stop. This appeared to be some kind of something that happened over there. We're going to have to find out what happened exactly between the two individuals, the officer and the individual who was stopped, and exactly what were the circumstances that led up to this. It's only then that you can determine if this was anything to do with race. But at the same time, you can't help but think it had something to do with race. And therefore, again, I go back to my initial point, which is the retraining in sensitivity and the retraining altogether of police forces.
If she's convicted for the second-degree manslaughter, she will get about 10 years only. That's something that Daunte Wright's family is really offended by. Do you think that's enough if you kill somebody?
They're going to have to determine whether they're going to go forward and push a court to, instead of introducing manslaughter, hearing manslaughter charges, a prosecutor brings the charges. But my point here is the family will probably ask for homicide. They'd want to charge this person with homicide rather than a second-degree manslaughter, which is a lesser crime, in the court system. And that's what's going to happen. According to the laws in various states, the second-degree manslaughter could charges, if the person is convicted, could lead you to between 10 years and 25 years of imprisonment with parole. So whether it's fair or not, that's the court system, and we have to go with it. It wouldn't seem fair if this was a deliberate act.
Right. And protest and outrage continues for a third night. I believe by the time we air this interview, it may be the fourth night that we're seeing protests in Minneapolis. What kind of a message do you think is sending across the country? Are we going to see something similar to what happened after George Floyd died?
Well, once again, the problem here with the protests is the very first visuals you saw the next morning on television were stores that were looted, small businesses in the area that were completely looted, devoid of any of their properties, of their goods that they were selling. And once again, this reflects very poorly on those who protested. Because what were you trying to do? By protesting, what are you trying to do? Hurt other businesses? I mean, business people who had absolutely nothing to do with this. Those are people who feed their families. Those are people who, make a living day to day by trying to sell something in a small store, in a small retail outlet. So those are the first pictures you saw. As to protests and riots, very understandable. But I think the demonstrators, the protesters need to rein themselves in and actually hold a protest against the police. If it's the police they're targeting, go outside police headquarters, go outside other places and show their ire and their anger. But you can't go about destroying businesses. I'm totally against that type of thing if I give my own opinion on it. But it seems like it's unfair to so many other people. One wrong doesn't make two other rights, in your opinion, if you want to do something, adverse, such as destroy property.
Yeah, I think the people are just very, very outraged, and they just cannot understand how this is happening in the same city as George Floyd. Let's now talk about the George Floyd case that has been going on. Today was the 13th day of the trial of Derek Chauvin. I want to ask you, how are you looking at the defense trying to prove that George Floyd died without his knee on his neck, and they're trying to say that, it may be a drug overdose, it may be carbon monoxide from the police car. Why are they doing all of this, according to you?
Well, that's the defense's job, is to defend the person that has been charged. And so they're going to definitely bring in their witnesses who can contradict whatever the prosecution has said through its witnesses. And they're doing exactly that. They're bringing in their own medical examiner expert to talk about the cause of death, or the suspected cause of death with George Floyd. And the suspicious part about this particular individual being brought in, this former medical examiner of Maryland, was the fact that when he was the chief medical examiner of the state of Maryland, he was also involved in a similar case. And he became extremely controversial because he ruled against any allegations that police were at fault in that particular case, whereas it turned out the police were at fault. So he himself is a tainted witness. I'm not sure if what he has to say is going to stand up in this particular court. It may well, under cross-examination, if he's given some very expert medical opinions on how this death may have occurred, and the jury is commenced, then he could well be a good witness in those terms. There's been a lot of controversy during this trial about exactly where the knee of Derek Chauvin was placed, whether it was on the neck, the knee itself, or whether it was across the back of George Floyd. And that's been what they've been trying to talk about. And that's where they're trying to delineate the difference. The prosecution tried to show that the neck was the knee was the exact cause of death because it put pressure on his neck, which was not necessary, which led to his deprivation of oxygen and therefore his sudden collapse and eventual death. The defense witnesses are trying to prove otherwise, that this was not the case, that the knee was not fully pressuring his neck, therefore leading to deprivation of oxygen. But other sources, such as carbon monoxide emission from that car's, the muffler at the back there, direct exhaust that was going into his lungs, which may have led to poisoning his blood and eventual death, et cetera, et cetera. And the combination of toxic drugs within him. They tried to bring out some points in the toxicology reports that he had substances within his bloodstream, and those are probably more likely to have caused his death. Now it's going to be up to the jury, as I said, to be convinced one way or the other, and then deliver a verdict.
Right, but no one can deny the fact that even if it was carbon monoxide, it came from the car and they put them on the ground. So the police were still the people doing it. We'll continue to follow this story with you, as always, every week. Let's now take a look at more COVID-19 updates. Conversations continue to happen about the rare case of blood clots seen recently in women who got the Johnson & Johnson single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. The CDC and FDA are now recommending a pause on the use of the vaccine for 7 to 10 days, affecting the current rollout of the vaccines in the country. More than 7 million people have received this vaccine. The company Johnson & Johnson have said that the benefits of the vaccine outweighs its risk. On the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 pause and more, we spoke with health expert Dr. Purvi Parikh. Here's what Purvi Parikh had to say. Johnson & Johnson's single-dose vaccine has now been paused and has been recommended to be paused by the FDA and the CDC, and it's being linked to a rare blood clot that 6 women in this country had between the ages of 18 and 48. My question to you is, what is this connection between rare blood clots and what are they doing exactly to the body, and how concerned are you about this?
Right. I'm glad that there is this pause so we can further investigate what is going on. But I do want to remind people that this is extremely rare. So yes, while it's concerning, I wouldn't panic or be fearful of this vaccine because literally it's 6 out of 6.8 million, so it's literally 1 in a million cases. So statistically, you're actually more likely to be hit by lightning. It's much more common to get blood clots from being obese or smoking or being on birth control pills. So there's so many other factors, but what the thinking theory is that it might be the same mechanism in which we saw some rare blood clots with the AstraZeneca vaccine. So both AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson use the same type of vaccine, meaning they use a vector or an inactivated common cold virus to actually bring in the information about coronavirus to your immune system. And that's how it works to mount the immunity. So the thought is the blood clot might be an immune reaction, like your own body reacting to that vector, because now we're seeing it in both of the vaccines that are a similar technology. But again, I just want to stress that, if you get the real illness, COVID-19, you're very likely to clot. Like 1 in 20 people in the hospital develop blood clots who have COVID-19 and 1 in 100 recovering at home. So that's much more common, than 1 in a million. So you're still better off getting the vaccine because the benefit is much more than the risk, which is luckily very, very rare.
So are you saying that the AstraZeneca blood clot and the Johnson & Johnson blood clots is pretty much the same? Its reaction to the body is the same?
Yeah, so that's what the current thinking diagnosis is. And it makes sense because they're both very similar vaccines. But we'll know for sure once, the FDA and CDC finish their investigation. They announced yesterday that they're going to need another 7 to 10 days to thoroughly look through everything. But that's what it looks like now, initially.
And what's the impact of blood clots on a body? What can happen?
Yeah, so what blood clots do is basically in your blood vessels, there's inflammation, and the clot can be dangerous because it can block your blood vessel so that blood doesn't go through as it's supposed to. And of course, we need blood to bring nutrients, oxygen to various parts of our body. So again, that's why it is concerning for sure. But like I said before, the actual virus, COVID-19, causes so much more blood clotting. So many people, almost a third of the people in the ICU develop blood clots when they have COVID-19. And those clots can cause strokes and heart attacks and a lot of devastation. So we have to look at the big picture here.
What about the people that have gotten the Johnson & Johnson vaccine already? There was already this concern about the efficacy being lower than Pfizer and Moderna. Now with this, should they be concerned? What should they watch out for in terms of these rare blood clots?
Right. So there is no need for concern, especially if you had your vaccine more than 3 weeks ago and you're feeling fine. These 6 to 7 cases that we've identified all happened within 6 to 13 days, so fairly soon after the vaccination. It was more common in the younger women. And, if you feel well, there's no need to worry that this could happen to you, because even in the clinical trials and all of the other millions of people are fine without any clot. But some warning signs is that you could have like very, very severe headaches or blurred vision. Or let's say, sometimes headache is common with the vaccine, right? Because your immune system is responding. But if the headache is not responding to Advil or Tylenol or those usual medications and it's getting worse, those are warning signs you should go in and be seen. But otherwise, there's no need to panic and get checked for blood clots, because these are extremely rare.
Welcome back. You are watching Vision of Asia Top Picks of the Week, bringing you major happenings on coronavirus, politics, culture, and more. On that, Michelin-starred Indian chef Vyas Khanna has launched the Binder Indian Cultural Center in the heart of Manhattan, New York. The center aims to be a hub for Indian heritage, arts, cinema, music, literature, and cuisine. This launch of Binder recently saw a celebration and a tribute to legendary Indian playback singer Lata Mangeshkar. Produced in collaboration with the Indian Consulate of New York, the virtual celebration included 12 well-known Indian artists and was curated by Sunny Tucker of Sneh Arts. Here is the story.
As we talk about India's legacy to the world, there's no one who represents that more than Lata ji. We are honored that we have 11 singers and 1 poet who will be giving tribute to the greatest artist from the soil of India. So, Sunny has been curating music and festivals for as long as I've lived in New York. I've been hearing about him and I'm really proud to collaborate with him. So let's begin listening to the amazing artists who are a reflection of our son, Lata ji.
Namaste, warm greetings to all of you from the Indian Consulate in New York. We are delighted to be part of this launch of Binder, an Indian cultural experience which has been brought together by internationally renowned chef and India's star, Mr. Vyas Khanna. In this project, we also have Sneh Arts, which has been collaborating to take this initiative forward. As part of its launch, Binder is bringing to its audience for the first time tribute to the pride of India, Lata Mangeshkar ji. We have talented artists from across the world sending their favorite songs of Lata Mangeshkar ji. And this bouquet of songs, which will then be part of this project as a tribute to her. I wish all the artists, all the spectators, and all the participants the very best in the launch of Binder.
Namaskar, friends. Welcome to Binder celebrates the immortal legacy of the one and only Bharat Ratna Lata Mangeshkar. What can one say about Didi? For me, she is my lifeline. Her music, her voice has always been with me in the times of happiness, in the times of sorrow. There's not a moment that passes by where I don't feel her with me. That's why I call her my Jeevan Aadhar. And curating a tribute for her was a very tough task. But we have tried our best to pay a humble tribute to such a legend who is probably born once in this universe.
Namaskar. My name is Sunaina Kachubhide. I'm a poet, film writer, and a very, very big fan of Lata Mangeshkar ji. The impact and the influence of her music in our lives is as omnipresent as breath. We don't think about it, but it is always there. So it's almost impossible to capture the essence of her music in just a few words. But Lataji, here's my attempt and a humble offering to you. I hope that you like it. समय के प्रवाह से गुजरा झुलसा चंदन हुआ, भाव जब कागजों पे उतरा महका मधुबन हुआ, शब्द जब अर्थ से जुड़ा ठहरा अर्पण हुआ, आपके स्वरों से मिला संवरा और कुंदन हुआ।
ईश्वर सत्य है, सत्य ही शिव है, शिव ही सुंदर है। जागो उठ कर देखो, जीवन जो तुजागर है, सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम, सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम, सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम, सुंदरम।
पहचान है, कर याद रहे हो, नाम गुम जाएगा, चेहरा ये बदल जाएगा, मेरी पहचान है, कर याद रहे।
This week, Indians across the globe are commemorating and paying tribute to Dr. Bhim Ambedkar on his 130th birth anniversary. Dr. Ambedkar was the chief architect of Indian Constitution and one of the most influential Indian leaders around the time of India's independence from the British Raj. A jurist, economist, politician, and a social reformer, Dr. Ambedkar worked really hard through his life with a mission to end social discrimination against weak sections of the society. He was a recipient of India's highest honor, the Bharat Ratna, in 1990 and was also India's first law and justice minister. On this, the Consulate General of India, New York, also commemorated Dr. Ambedkar's 130th birth anniversary. Here are some highlights.
On the occasion of Baba Saheb Bhim Ambedkar's 130th birth anniversary, I convey my warmest wishes to one and all. His legacy, his principles, his life shall continue to guide us in our efforts to build a better India, a better tomorrow for one and all. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Shatrughan Sinha, Deputy Consul General of India in New York. We are here at the Consul General of India in New York today to mark the birth anniversary of one of the greatest sons of India, Baba Saheb Bhim Ambedkar. Baba Saheb was the key architect of India's constitution, a constitution which has served us so well. Baba Saheb's life itself is a message. He always kept the interests of the downtrodden, the oppressed at the forefront. He also had a deep connection to the city of New York. He studied in New York at the Columbia University. Baba Saheb's we remember him with great fondness, and there is so much to learn from his life. We are here at the Consulate to mark this occasion by speaking about his life and his teachings. I would like to wish the viewers of ITV Gold on this auspicious occasion all the very best. Thank you.
मैं गुरमीत सिंह CEO अपना पंजाब मीडिया ग्रुप न्यूयॉर्क, और आज हम यहाँ कॉन्सुलेट में हैं। न्यूयॉर्क कॉन्सुलेट में बाबा साहब का बर्थडे है आज, तो उसको सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं हम। तो बाबा साहब के बारे में, उनकी लाइफ के बारे में, उनके अचीवमेंट के बारे में, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बारे में सब यहाँ हमारे जो स्पीकर हैं वो इनको डिटेल में सारा बताएंगे, ताकि यहाँ वाली जनरेशन है उनको भी पता लगे कि इंडिया के बारे में, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बारे में, वहाँ जो भी बाबा साहब के बारे में पता लगे उनको। तो ये हमारा पर्पज है। इसी तरह थैंक यू।
जय भीम जय भारत। मेरा नाम पिंदरपाल, चेयरमैन बेगमपुरा कल्चर सोसाइटी ऑफ न्यूयॉर्क। अज असीं श्री गुरु रविदास साहब ऑफ न्यूयॉर्क ਦੇ ਉਪਰਾਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੌਂਸਲੇਟ ਆਫ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਵਿਖੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ 130ਵਾਂ ਜਨਮ ਦਿਨ ਮਨਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਏ ਹਨ। ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਤੇ ਸਮੂਹ ਜਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਖ ਲੱਖ ਵਧਾਈ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਕਾਰ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਬਾਬਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਸੁਪਨਾ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ, ਅੱਜ ਲੋਕ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ ਇਹ ਦਲਿਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਸੀਹਾ ਸਨ। ਦਲਿਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਸੀਹਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਮਸੀਹਾ ਸਨ। ਉਹਨੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਰਾਹਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ, ਭਾਰਤ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਰਾਹਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਚੱਲ ਕੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਰਿਹਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਹਨ, ਬਾਬਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਉਹਨੇ ਸੁਪਨਾ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ, ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਭਾਰਤ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧ ਸਕਦਾ ਹਨ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫੇਰ ਬਾਬਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਕਾਰ ਕਰਨ ਇੱਕ ਮੰਚ 'ਤੇ ਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਸੁਪਨਾ ਸਾਕਾਰ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। जय भीम जय भारत।
इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में बाबा साहब का 130वां बर्थडे मनाने के लिए इकट्ठे हुए हैं। मेरी तरफ से और मेरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन श्री गुरु रविदास साहब ऑफ न्यूयॉर्क की तरफ से आप सभी को बाबा साहब के जन्मदिन की बहुत बहुत बधाई हो। आज हम बाबा साहब का जो जन्मदिन मना रहे हैं, जो उन्होंने इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लिखा है, उसको अप्रिशिएट करने के लिए, वो मॉडर्न इंडिया के पितामह हैं। हम उनको बहुत बहुत प्यार करते हैं। आप सभी को बाबा साहब के जन्मदिन की बहुत बहुत बधाई हो। जय भीम जय भारत।
To celebrate this momentous, this August, this very special occasion of 130th birth anniversary of our very own Dr. Bhim Ambedkar, Baba Saheb. On this very special occasion, I convey my warmest wishes to each one of you. We have had Subidar Khushia Singh, other members of the distinguished gathering here, speaks so well about an icon of India. He's a man who had many personalities. A man who was a political thought leader, who was a political reformer, a social reformer, an economist, a constitutionalist, a lawyer, all rolled into one. Man of tremendous amount of energy, and in his 59 years that he lived, he was able to do so much more than what a person is able to do in 59 years. He had a huge impact on a nation building, on a freedom struggle, and all his values that he stood for, as most importantly as a social reformer, continues to guide us in our onward progress, in our onward march as a nation, as India. We are grateful to him, and his legacy, his vision, his guidance shall continue to inspire us.
Well, this wraps up our show with top picks of the week. Please send us your suggestions and get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook, handle @itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for free access to many of our popular shows. Thank you for joining us today from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I'm Aditi Lamba. Take care and be well.